Hey, Danny.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff?
Good. I've been in a conference all week, so
Oh, no worries. So let me see. I'm still struggling with the John's able to get through, so I got to figure out what's going on. I just got to meet with I think Kevin from Open Compute, but um, I thought what we could do today, uh, or just for a minute here, is I did talk to Sammy, who's running that sort of like new PUE work
uh,
group.
yep.
And like we're like, yeah, we like because we kind of always originally thought like, yeah, our stuff should feed that and blah blah blah. And so I think we like kind of need to sync up on each other's work groups a little bit. He posted this link, which I'm trying to get in, but I can't. I don't know, my OCP password stuff isn't working. I put it there. I don't know in the chat. I don't know if you can get in.
Let me try.
Try.
I can see this. Are you sure it's the most recent? Hi, by the way. Haven't been here in a while.
Oh, hey,
Um,
David. Yeah.
I
I
can,
don't know if it's the most recent. I just know it's the most recent email I have from him, but
yeah, because
might possibly if there's something it's the
let
last.
me, yeah, he and I are having a back and forth on getting me permissions, and likewise, he seems to want to use the OCP.
Yeah,
Um,
which that's I mean it makes sense. I can't argue with that. Like
okay,
Yeah,
OCP
so
I got to I had to request access to the page.
interesting. Me, I'm just having trouble with my regular OCP
Yeah.
logon. I think that's what
so
I got past
yeah.
that part, so at least I logged in with my OCP credentials and don't have access to it.
So I'm taking, while you all talk, let me make sure that is indeed the most recent one, because in his
okay.
last meeting,
That would be good too.
and then I'll see if I can get,
I didn't even think which I don't know which trying to think how to reset my password through the Open Compute.
oh,
But I think I need to get, I think I just need to do that. Let me see here. Here. Okay, let's try this.
okay, that is the most recent, and I can access it.
You can? Okay, cool.
I can, and let me just see. Yeah, I asked him for, because I'm not just in OCP, I'm also in this external group and that external group. I asked him to use a more generic Gmail that I have, and so he finally did give me access. So would it help for this meeting if I share it, or do you all just want to wait until you get
Sure. Yeah,
access?
can we, yeah, because I thought it'd be good to get Jeff up to speed and me for that matter. Maybe we
Yes.
get, and then if you kind of already like there, then for sure, like, yeah.
Okay, where is she?
Hi, folks.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah.
All right. So it's dated Feb of 2024. And
Sustainable metro considerations PUE. Okay. And then
I'm not sure how to turn on show comments.
that's okay. I
But
think
yeah,
PUE, so what I'm interested in is sort of like I said, like going back to like how do we feed into this? And I'm curious if this already has some guardrails or not. But is there something like a chapter that talks about power delivery architecture? I don't know, like power reporting or energy.
all right. So let's go to, all right. So there's an executive summary. and definitions. All right, so let's start with I have not read this because this is the first time I actually saw that I had access. So
Okay, cool.
he does have a whole bunch of PUE measurement. So let's just scroll down and take a look at, oh, and he has power delivery architecture.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's in there. I mean, it says converters and sort of, but it doesn't say anything about telemetry, but we can.
Doesn't yet
There's nothing on power reporting.
go into like telemetry reporting,
Okay. Okay.
Well, he has measurement and report.
Oh, there we go.
except
Okay.
except yeah, it does talk about like that generic description that you see there.
Uh-huh. Most of the recommendations for measurement and reporting, what is that paper? That's actually interesting. I didn't know there was that paper they're referencing.
Energy Star.
Can you put that link into the chat too? I'm curious.
And I can also open it so we will all be looking at it.
Yeah. Oh. 2011. Okay.
Yeah, I do remember looking at this in some meeting that he had, that Sammy had. Yeah.
Recommendation measure report overall data center efficiency. Interesting. I'm curious, maybe we'll scroll through this. I'm curious this one. Let's see here. PUE metric calculation, PUE weighting of energy. Energy type based on source energy. Maybe that's PUE calculation using, so yeah, that's probably the only thing I can think of. Let's see. PUE.
Sorry, I'm skipping over the definitions. Let's look at
No,
this.
you're good. I'm kind of doing the same. So 3.3.
Oh, that's right. You have the link.
Yeah. Interesting. Renewal for data centers.
Oh, no.
It really doesn't say. I mean, otherwise, like just IT. This goes into the IT. I mean, I think
If you look at
Give the
table
point of measurement.
one, table one.
yeah.
I mean, what most people do is they use the UPS, right? And they measure there.
Yeah, so it's which makes, well, I guess kind of, I mean, and maybe this is where we again, like we play our role and it helps improve this thing, which is like sort of before it was like, oh, just, let's say you take it at the UPS. I don't know if that's exactly what, but the UPS, there's losses before you get there and so forth. And so it's sort of like, hey, if you're taking, if the idea with this metric is that you take UPS and then later we're reporting bottoms up sort of compute server, then will this metric that you guys are planning here, Deb, like, is it going to break that out separately to where you have sort of like infrastructure delivery losses versus actual kind of compute losses?
So I have not been able to read this document. But oh yeah, I mean, you've been able to attend more regularly than I have, Shruti, so please jump in.
Yeah, so essentially, the thing is, the original document that you saw, right, like the 2011 Energy Star document,
Yeah.
that basically talks about categorizing the PUE value based on, like point of measurement and maybe sampling rate and some such stuff that it talks about. And sampling rate doesn't mean the sampling rate of, device level. It's just telling, was it measured on a daily basis averaged, or was it maybe measured on a monthly basis and averaged kind of thing. So PUE was measured at what rate. So it talks about these things and accordingly, describes categories of PUE. And paper, the SAMI paper that Deb is sharing, that builds on top of that. So basically, it's trying to refine how that PUE is measured. Of these
Right,
have
actually-
gone into, the telemetry of what the device level is reporting. Does
Right, but it does, yeah.
Sense?
This definitely isn't going to get that fine grained, but I think if you scroll up, Deb, you were kind of on it earlier,
Oh,
where it
all
said,
right.
I think it, a little bit more. It sounds like, because there's something where it's like, keep going. So it was like at the very, right there. So PUE category 3 sounds like what, like there, right? Because they're sort of like UPS, PDU output. Those are sort of these output delivery things. But then 3 looks like based on IT equipment input, provides the advanced level of resolution. So it sounds like we are feeding into that one.
So just historically, everybody has done 1. Right, and if I look at the EED regulations,
right? And this
they're
category, because
going
it includes
after
the
1.
point. Yeah, and since this
Shruti?
categorization includes point of measurement also, that's why you see this, essentially it's describing of measurement.
So is this like classes
Are you
of reporting, sort of like Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3?
able to hear me?
You're cutting in and out, Shruti,
Yeah.
so we're not getting
Oh.
the complete sentences.
Okay, maybe now is better. I was just saying that since this categorization is based on point of measurement also, that is why we see the difference in, what you're pointing out. Category 3 is IT equipment, category 1 is UPS.
Right, but what we've seen when typically people do not say which of this category or that other documents category. They typically don't say, they just say my PUE is 1.2. Right.
Correct.
With
Right.
Most people are doing this number 1 based on measuring at their UPS. So after the switch for like your gas powered backup and your cooling, then you would see your UPS, and that's where people are measuring.
So,
Right.
So I always thought of this as being like a separate power meter going into the IT room, because not everybody's going to have UPS. So is this kind of referring to the same thing?
That's an interesting question. I never thought about not having UPS.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I understand that
Yeah.
the basic PUE is based on a power meter going into the utility or into the facility, and then there's another power meter that's kind of feeding the IT room, and then that they use those two to calculate the PUE. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm trying to understand the UPS.
I'm looking for two.
Because on the UPS side, that's really expensive, and some IT gear is not considered critical, so they would
Right.
be backing
Yeah,
that up.
and I'm kind of like less interested in sort of like what's been going on, and more like has the work groups, is the work group looking forward to sort of like what is the work group strategy and how do we fit into it, right? So does the work group have an analogous set of like categories or this proposal? Oh, you stopped sharing.
So
I did because I wanted to find something and didn't want everybody
sure.
to see me
Yeah,
flaring
so
through
I don't know,
my
Shruti, do you know, like, is that how it's being structured for the new proposal?
yeah, so one thing that this work group, or at least SAMI, had in mind initially was, I'll use the word profile, but it's an overloaded word right now, so just bear with me for a minute. So sort of having a higher level sustainability profile, which is describing these metrics like PUE, IU, etc., that are going to be needed. And then having a second lower layer to that profile, which in my understanding would overlap quite a bit with your work, of describing what kind of telemetry might be reported. Now, in the two layers of the profile they have in mind, the upper layer actually does have overlapping work with DCF sustainability folks, because they are also trying to build a list of all of these sustainability metrics. And the second layer, like I described, I feel has an app with your work streams work. So I'll pause there. Does that picture make sense?
I think so. So you're saying there's going to be, like you said, this loaded word profile, but like they'll sort of be that it's going to fit within sort of a hierarchical scheme of like, yeah, you can just report this very simply, or you could report something a little bit more detailed, and that's where we would come in. I think, I guess, and maybe you can just, try to call in tomorrow, or I don't want to like come into the work or two. I guess my thing is like, it'd be nice if we start syncing up and being like, here we have this other OCP expectation that the compute server, and maybe more components, but at a minimum, the compute server is going to report its telemetry. And, this new metric is gonna, it might be leveraging it from both sides, right? So you sort of have this like power delivery, sort of like, here's the gross power going into the whole building. But then there's this bottoms up of like, hey, like this is actually what got used for compute cycles, right? And I think the compute server should be that aggregated sort of unit measure where it's like, okay, everything, and maybe not the power delivery, maybe if you have a PSU, maybe we decide if that gets bundled into something else, but sort of like memory, CPU, even storage and IO, like we call that compute, and it gets used in this calculation explicitly, right?
Right. And that level of, I guess, server level of telemetry that should be looked at. I think that's where the second hierarchy level of the power profile I was describing, according to Sammy's description.
Structure. Yeah, and I would make sense too if it's like, I'm sure we aren't going to be the only one. Maybe like I was wondering if the work group is aligned on things like, hey, we want this next level to have like these, whatever 5 categories, right? Like compute, like maybe that's just CPU plus memory, or then like IO, and we kind of have that because IO has been talked about as like how much does it take to energy to move data around, right? And then maybe there's something around cooling, and so like we would report a chunk of cooling, right? I mean, we're one chunk of like many in sort of the cooling layer, right? And do you know, is that sort of the direction they're heading, or just kind of not there yet?
I'm not quite sure that there is like decision done to that level yet. I think right now they are just working on the individual these metrics. So like they worked on PUE, they are working on IUE, and then on the side there was this discussion of having this multi-layer power profile or sustainability metrics profile kind of thing.
Okay, so maybe there's a couple layers of ask for us too. Then maybe it's as simple as we report in and it gets used for the big PUE, and then we kind of keep our stuff going, and then if the next layer comes in, we can be a part of like breaking that out, right? Because if I had to think about it, I'd love something like, hey, what's compute, what's cooling, what's IO, maybe even something like what's storage or manageability or infrastructure. And then it's like, because then you could take cooling and add up fans, and then chillers, and then whatever, or you could take power delivery and you could add up board losses and all kinds of other things. And I don't know, but maybe I think that's probably a long-term phase. But I would at least like if in the main sort of first level pass that we do leverage the compute server feedback, because I don't know, I feel like we kind of see that as like the minimum for our reporting, and I'd like to go into sort of the minimum for this reporting, if that makes sense.
So the compute server feedback from, like, are you talking about the compute server profile feedback?
From this work group, yeah. I guess I should say telemetry, not feedback. I should just, but yeah, basically the output of this work group, like I would like it to make that first metric, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm aligned on that. What I would sort of steer that work group towards is that they should be, they would be working on the higher level profile, of course. And then for the lower level hierarchy of the profiles, we can basically get content that is already developed in this work stream.
Mhm.
So, and we sort of create a, complete profile that way and publish.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll just, if I could just jump in and rewinding the conversation a bit. So to the question of UPS or not, this is like the green grid created PUE and defined the levels. So level 1 in both cases, you can see there's 2 different level 1s. I don't know if you can see my cursor. So they're assuming there's always a UPS. So to the question of where there's no UPS, I don't really have an answer to that. It's
Yeah.
quite possible that those facilities are so small.
I
And
mean,
they're
sometimes they're big. Like you start talking about all the HPC, all the big power systems. Like it's the storage or the other things that people want to maintain and keep up. As far as the compute, a lot of customers, at least I see, are they don't want to spend the money on the UPS to hold up the compute.
Yeah. So the UPS is also, I mean, you can also just make that as make that terminology replacement for power distribution unit, because
Yeah,
that's probably more likely.
So PDU, that's all down here at the bottom for
But
all the
well,
level 2s.
but
that's the rack PDU. There's other
Yes.
power distribution units further back up too.
Right.
I see. I see.
So, but just it's think of it just generically. Don't get hung up on the actual UPS, but
Right.
measurement.
The critical thing is that if you look over on the right, all the backup generators, and then all this mechanical equipment like your air conditioning, right? So that so far with PUE, that those things are on the right is what people have been optimizing in order to get lower PUE. So whether they have a UPS or someplace else that they're measuring it after all of the stuff on the right. So that's PUE 1. And so I would say that where this work group is more like around level 3. So all of these different little green boxes. I mean, we've just really focused on the actual servers, right? The telemetry reporting that power, and there would have to be some software system that's collecting and adding it up appropriately. Here's all the different storage, here's all the different servers, here's all the different networking, however they want to add it up, and storing it in a database at some period of time for reporting and looking for improvement opportunities, right? And then there's sort of this middle thing, which would be the PDUs at the rack level. So, when, like, I'm coming at this from like the perspective of the EED, so the Energy Efficiency Directive in the EU, where folks who have data centers in the EU need to report in May. And so they definitely will want the utility metering point and then the L1 points, the PUE L1 points. They want those to be reported on. And then they also ask for 2 numbers, which would be the max of, well, I guess the one that really is relevant would be the max of all your servers added together. What's your max power possible draw that they call it compute. And that's a number that nobody, well, not nobody, but most people we've talked to really don't have and don't know how to get.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I think,
I don't know if that was helpful or not.
maybe, but I mean, this is this a handbook that the work group is looking to leverage?
No,
Okay.
this
That's what
is
I thought.
something I found that somebody else published that I found useful, so I can pop this into the chat
So,
if people are at all interested in it.
sure. Here, let me do this. Let me just share for a quick sec, although we're probably gonna
Please.
want to switch back to you because you've got all the access to this talk, but sort of like simplistically, this is kind of what I was there we go. Just something along this like line of like kind of like you said, the kind of like, I don't know, high level PUE or whatever, or first level reporting, like we report something for the entire compute node. And I think the thing here is that we have a common boundary. So like maybe it's everything beyond the power supply, because sometimes you could have a power supply, sometimes you could have a bus bar. And that's sort of like a no-brainer, right? But and we report that, or we make sure, we make sure our spec reports that out as a metric, right? But then what we enable is sort of this second level stuff where, let's say you want to define everything that's data center compute. Well, we'll do our part because we'll report like CPU and memory, or we'll report, I mean, obviously we report them separately, but you know, CPU plus accelerator plus memory. I think of these as sort of like quote unquote compute, you know, and the idea being that our telemetry allows these kind of things. And then like we have like our fan power, right? Or I should say energy, sorry. Like we have our fan energy, and that could be part of rolling up a total like, hey, what's the data center cooling, right? Our IO devices could be part of data center IO, storage, data center, you know, storage, if that's the actual desire, right? And then things like power losses, like we could look at our VR losses, maybe even, I don't know if we, well, probably just that, right? But that could be part of like data center power delivery efficiency, right? And then there might be some outliers, things like, you know, a NIC, if it's a smart NIC, it's doing some compute, but do we just call it IO anyway? Manageability stuff like BMCs, and you know, there's a few other things. And does this bucket it into this? Like, I think what I'd love is like, if there is a desire for that, this new PUE work stream to define sort of the second level set of things that'll get aggregated across different nodes or across different, you know, racks and whatever, and all the stuff supporting it, then we just make sure like, hey, we are reporting this and it's used in for this kind of aggregated data center metric. So let me pause there. Do you guys think
I was
that
just gonna
makes sense? Is that something we should advocate for the PUE work group to kind of align on?
I was gonna ask, trying to understand the value of breaking down the compute, the IO, and the storage, since that's all considered, for the most part, good power, right?
Yep.
Actually going towards work.
There you go.
So, so separating those out, while it could be done, I guess the question was kind of just
Is
why,
it valuable?
how would it be used?
Right.
I agree, John. The reason if you divide those two things, the categories into the useful, non-useful, you've got you know, CPU, memory, IO, and storage is all useful, and fan and power losses are the unuseful. So that's the first thing we want to break those. And then the reason that we do this today for other reasons is to further break down things like the CPU and memory and some of the storage, is because there's direct knobs that you can twist on those for performance versus consumption.
Right. Gotcha.
Especially on the CPU front.
Gotcha. So having some of those would help encourage maybe the use of power management, because folks would actually see the impact. Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, and those are happening regardless of anything about sustainability. So
So I'm completely agree on the power supply efficiencies and fan power. I think that's straightforward. Um I'll say I get concerned with the power losses one of looking at the VRs.
Mm-hmm.
It get you know I would think different vendors would have different capabilities in how much they could measure their various VRs, right?
correct, and I think that's and John, I don't remember if it was Danny or if it was. I'm sorry, it wasn't Danny. I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name. He's the Intel guy that's kind of very much in the sustainability tracks here. Anyway, but it was kind of news to me as well that the power losses from the VRs is non-trivial in today's systems, and so I think that's going to be an area of that we
Right.
probably need to go get some eyes on that and some
Right.
exposure, and so making it measured or driving that is a good way to shine some light on it.
Right. Like to me, if it was crisp around saying just the CPU's VRs, like just a VR
Yeah.
maybe, or to make it specific, which is something that no can be done and can be consistent. My concern is otherwise, if and it's a reason why Dell has considered doing this years ago because we have a lot of built-in telemetry, but chose not to because the better you do your job at measuring all these things and reporting it out, the worse you look from an efficiency perspective. So it becomes a potentially, do the right thing and become competitively disadvantaged. So I think that's why getting into VR, I just wanted to comment. I think it's got to be very prescribed.
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely I don't like things that are, like you said, a lack of consistency, right? You look at like a VR 14 or something like that. I think anything after VR 13, they have sort of input output losses and can report it over SVID and can put it out in the PM bus and all that. But like some smaller VR that's, I don't know, on a DDR5, VR on DIMM, or even just a small VR for one of the smaller CPU rails or something else, like, yeah, I don't think they do. And so if we kind of report some VRs but not others, it's not clean. I do want to be more towards reporting as much as we can, because then if we make it consistent, then it hopefully assuages some of, like you said, the concern of like, hey, yeah, the more you report, the worse you look. But at least if everybody's doing it, it's an even playing field. But if we can't sort of do it consistency across a technology, or I mean a stage,
Right.
of losses, then then it gets messy, because then somebody chooses to design a board with these that do report and others that don't. That we wouldn't want somebody gaming the system or doing
Right.
weird designs just to artificially look good and not really be. So yeah,
There's
we can. That's a good one.
just to think about it. The other comment I'll make is you won't ever get CPU and memory. Maybe you can, depending on how it's done. There's been challenges in the past between completely drawing a clear line between CPU and memory because some of the numbers could bleed back and forth. Like for example, the problem is when you get into shared VRs. Now that we got VR on DIMM with DDR5, that's not so much the issue. But when you had a memory VR voltage that fed both the memory controller and the DIMM, right? Like it's hard to designate that or separate that. And then sometimes with storage or IO, it's a problem too if they have a shared 5-volt or 3.3 volt, or things aren't always separated out cleanly. You can generally capture most of it, but there's not a real clean line that makes it real easy to say this is all exactly storage and this is all exactly IO. They will bleed over some.
Yeah, and that's where it's sort of like, that one might be where it's like, at the end of the day, it's always going to be caught in this, right? Like the compute server node or whatever, right?
Right.
And then it's like, so that'll kind of keep, I think, people honest. And then it's like, hey, maybe we call this as sort of like some type of, we somehow like incentivize this or something, right? This is sort of like second level, more insightful. But at the end of the day, the PUE metric, whatever, is still calculated based on this, right? It's not just going to like, oh, take this subset and use it, and then you get to hide some stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you want to just a clean second level, and then there's some more detailed third level to when we get to is, it's output side of the PSU, which is already supported and um, standard PSUs and folks have had for a long time. And then the fan telemetry is pretty easy as long as you put down a 12 volt or 48 volt current monitor. Um, the rest is where things get a little messy.
Yeah. Second level, and we can top this for insight and optimization. Okay.
And then if I remember right, doesn't this kind of level doesn't Green Grid call ITUE or something like that, and then when you combine it with PUE, it becomes IUE.
Good question for.
I have heard that term. I don't know if it's the Green Grid or others.
But it's their intent to say, all right, there's all the distribution of the facility, or power distribution, cooling, all the other overhead, right? And then before it was just going into the IT room. Well, there's inefficiencies in the IT room as well as in the IT equipment. So how do you take out things like the power supply efficiency losses, the fan losses, and stuff like that? And so that was the whole intent of trying to bring in the IT side, so you could see what the true overall efficiency is to support the compute, because the actual compute number or the actual useful power is actually smaller than what's currently being measured.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so I think so. Yeah. Okay, I'll sync up and then I'll try to. I think I should be able to try to call in. So this is, like I said, the overlap. I think it's just called DCEM streams. They're tomorrow morning, 9 Pacific. So if people are really interested in what that work stream's doing, we can pop in. I'll try to pop into, because I think, again, we just feed them. So like I said, Sammy and I were talking about, let's make sure our two work groups are kind of like talking and referencing each other in our respective specs and things. So, okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me pause there. I don't know if Jeff, I know you're working on some stuff. Do you want to share anything, Jeff, that like?
Yeah, I don't have anything else than what's already in the poll on GitHub.
Okay. So I still am stuck not being able to pull that down. So I got to work on that. Is anybody else? Everybody else, I'm guessing, is able to access it, right?
Yeah, well, you should be able to access. You can access it through the web interface. At least look at it.
Okay. I've got my Zoom is messed up now. Let me see if I can do this. I might drop. Give me a sec, guys. Oh, there we go. Cancel. Okay. Let's see. Let me stop sharing. I'm all over the place. Sorry, guys. Okay. Does anybody want to go through that really quick, or do we want to just look at that? And I don't know if most people weren't here last week, Jeff, maybe when we scanned over it.
Yeah.
Or do you
I haven't seen it. Where's the link? I was looking on Open Compute under sustainability, but
It's the OCP profiles repository.
okay.
I just closed the tab. Hold on. There it is.
Is it hardware management OCP profiles? Is that
Yep.
it? Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, there's the link in the chat.
Okay.
And then if you, Daniel, if you want to pull that up.
Let me try so I can get in there. So it's under the OCP sustainability.
Yeah, no, it's under GitHub under hardware management. The link's in the chat.
Yeah, let me see. My GitHub is still not being happy, but just if it was in the web interface.
Web interface is fine for what we're doing.
So here, let me try to share again and let me see what's broke. Because I haven't been able to fix my OCP login. I don't know if it's going to restrict it to OCP people or not.
It doesn't. This is a public link.
Cool. Okay, let me share my screen. I show the right one. Let's see here. Should be here. So this here, right?
Yep. So if you click on that first one, the create OCP sustainability profile, then you can look at the files changed, and you'll see
There we go.
so there's the profile doc, and then the more interesting stuff is the text in the intro. And I haven't run through this to produce the output that combines all of this, but the intro, there you go. That intro document is kind of where all the use case text goes.
Okay. And is this the way this works? We can still tweak and commit to this or not from here, right?
Oh yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone can comment on this and quite frankly can
How
commit to it.
how do we add comments and stuff here? Is it just, I don't know.
So literally, if you go pick a line number anywhere in there,
Let's say like right here. Okay.
just click on it.
Got it. Okay. Maybe I don't look like.
Do you have to have rights to that? No, hold on.
Sure.
Oh, I'm so okay. Let's see. Just move your cursor between to the plus sign there,
There.
or just off that between those. Is there, because you should get a blue check mark between the line number and the plus sign on the right edge anywhere.
Not really. So somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't.
It's not bringing up the blue check mark or the blue plus sign.
I'll try to go.
Are you logged into GitHub?
Oh yeah, you probably have to at least be logged into GitHub, I bet.
Because I was trying to do it too and just realized
Yeah,
I
you
wouldn't
can do
log
it
in.
publicly, but you do have to actually be signed in.
Okay, I'll go do all that stuff. Okay, cool.
Can you see the ability to?
I'm logging in now. I don't know quite yet.
See, I'm at Dropper, so see if I can get in there.
Here, if you want me to share, I'll just show you what it looks like.
Okay.
So yeah, so you see when you're logged in, you get this blue.
Okay.
And so what happens is like, oh, I want to make a comment on this line, so I click that, and it comes up with the.
Got it. Got it.
I mean,
Right.
you
Got
add
it.
a comment, and it just appears in the poll.
Okay. Got it. Okay, cool. So let me, and like I said, I think like what I want to do too is, and maybe my next step is I'll work with Sammy to add some stuff to those early intros and stuff.
Yep.
Essentially linking these to future spec, right?
Yep.
So I want to say like, here's the motivation, here's the synergy, blah, blah. So I'll work on that offline. I'll probably either double check with some stuff in Sammy's work group or just start, putting something together, and then we can, including the other work group, right? Make sure we cross check each other.
Yep.
Okay.
What I haven't done yet is I need to run this through the DMTF doc generator that's open source, and it's referenced here. Oh yeah, it's not okay. I can't link it that way. So that will take this intro and then what's called the postscript, which is just effectively the it's the front material and the back material. And then it will go produce a reference guide that goes in between those, and then spits all that out as a single a big markdown document. So and so that will be effectively the output that we will publish, but all the edits need to occur, in the stuff that gets fed in. So I didn't go. I wasn't in a hurry to go get that up because I don't want people editing the wrong document.
Okay.
So yeah, it's this intro document is what really needs to be edited for content, and then everything else is kind of downstream from that. sorry, yeah, and there is some text, there's some things like purpose information that comes out of the profile itself that gets incorporated into the results. So that's, so there's some text to work on here too, if as needed.
Okay. Very cool. All right, I think that's kind of all the next steps. Does anybody, I know Shruti had to drop, I think maybe one other, but anybody else have any kind of questions? I think we dumped all the links in here for everybody to study up on, right? Yeah, okay. There it is. Okay, that's there too. Cool. Cool.
And I know I hadn't had the opportunity I missed the last couple or so. So is this code here that we're looking at? Is this the code you all were working on the one call I was able to join? You said you were working on defining
Yeah.
so the first metrics for review. So is that what this is?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
Very good.
Okay. Other questions or comments before we end a few minutes early, maybe?
Yeah, I just need some context since I'm a newbie to this, on what the goal is for this group or subgroup. I don't.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't want to keep everybody else on, but if you have
Okay.
an extra minute, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can definitely hang on. No problem. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and hang on, and anybody else that wants to can hang on. If anybody else needs a drop, we can, but I'll just kind of go through that. So,
Bye.
see you, Deb. Yeah, so the goal for this work group is to create a spec or a series of specs that talk about what are the OCP expectations for reporting energy telemetry. So one of the stakeholders is kind of what we were talking about today, which is there's a separate work group, meets tomorrow morning, also in the sustainability track where they're trying to create this new, basically replacement for PUE, right? And so one of the stakeholders is like, hey, if we're reporting compute server, that's going to go there. But really, it's just this general expectation of, for an OCP compliant server and maybe later things like, rack or other components, we, because of the sustainability push, want to set some expectations for reporting energy so that people can know what's being consumed, on some reasonable level, understand it accurately, have expectations for sample rate, things like that, component coverage, and just set those expectations so that any quote OCP server or rack, or eventually, where we go, meets these expectations, and anybody using it, will be able to understand how much energy it's consuming. That we've kind of roughly talked that there'll be two big phases. One kind of low-hanging fruit of like reporting it, out of band to whoever has access to see the BMC and the PM bus and read it through Redfish, and that sort of data center owners. That's the first sort of low-hanging fruit, since a lot of that's already there. And then the longer term, more difficult one's going to be like, hey, how do we eventually get this into the hands of somebody who's a developer, right, in the software layer? So is it, an API that we develop, or other things? So those are kind of the goals, short and long term, and some of this. But yeah,
Is this group aware of the immersion Redfish profile that's already built?
I don't know if Jeff's still on, but Jeff also overlaps with the manageability work group. Still there, Jeff?
Okay, and skip that. And then why would someone want to replace PUE? Why would OCP want to do that? What's the motivation?
Oh, I mean, you could probably, that group probably has a better statement, but I think they're on the ideas of like that. It's harder to see gains when actual real efficiency gains are there. Like, I think PUE all goes back to like a 1.0 number, and I think there's some concerns with like, oh, either there's some things that are being left out, or it's just harder to differentiate as data centers actually get more efficient at steering, more power to just compute rather than all the other areas. But
Yeah, it's not a very good metric to build to. I agree. But
Exactly. And just
It
like
gets misleading, right? Because with just having a simple numerator denominator, the denominator, for example, is just all IT compute, but it includes the inefficiencies or the non-useful power with the IT equipment. So as IT equipment gets more efficient, the denominator goes down and the numerator stays the same, so their PUE gets worse.
yeah.
So it's things like that where the metric's starting to lose its it's accurate. It had a purpose to provide direction, but it doesn't tell the full story. So I think that there's a lot of talk of the need to have these additional measurements so that you could have a more accurate overall metric for guidance.
Yeah.
okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So obviously it seems pretty easy. It seems like as long as it's already part of the redfish, or it sounds like Jeff's stuff is not accepted yet. That's just a proposal, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is all just us going to initial spec. We'll open it up for feedback and all that, but we're still working towards that. And similarly with the PUE group, I think they might be a little bit more ahead of us and kind of documenting, writing some stuff down. But I think they're in the early stages of like, here's our first release and getting feedback on it. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so I mean, what we're proposing here, that work that we're showing is a profile. So that's a requirements, effectively a requirements checklist for the implementations. So all the data we're talking about has already been defined in the redfish specification. So we're trying to make this is what you actually have to go support to meet the requirements of OCP.
OCP's take of sustainability.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so then, yeah, so you can still go back to redfish and get whatever you want for the Europeans or for the Brits or for the Americans.
Correct. Yeah.
So this is just literally just the report.
Correct. It's a hey, if you want, if in order for us to get enough telemetry, out of your machine to meet the requirements of an OCP product, this is the set of data we need. So here's your checklist.
Correct.
You got a whole bunch of other stuff, I don't care. But this is what we need. And hopefully what we're asking for is not unique by any stretch.
So then, well, I guess it's just for an OCP server, so it doesn't matter. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to make that for not just OCP servers, but really anything with a power plug that OCP would specify.
Yeah.
Well, then that's going to conflict with the immersion server. Have you already?
No. It won't. No, it won't conflict with them. But that's a question for the sustainability groups and the various other working groups at OCP need to make sure they're on the same page. But
Yeah.
But
I don't think they are. But as long as the scope, it's out of scope, it doesn't matter. Is my point. I guess it's still out of scope. So.
It's not out of scope for sustainability.
Huh. Okay. Well then.
You're talking about, so are you talking about, I'm guessing there's a redfish profile sort of like developed for quote servers that are emerged, like completely submerged servers kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, then I agree with Jeff. Like it should conform with that as well. I don't think there should be any contention. There might be additional things and so forth, or maybe, like a class, like if your server is also an, submerged or immersion server, then.
Oh yeah, they've got their own requirements and their own sets of profiles for that stuff. It's like this is yet another sticker.
Correct. Yep. Part of the checklist. Like, okay, that server's emerged, that's fine, but you still got to report A, B, and C, and in this ways, and that's it. Like, yeah.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Good.
Yeah.
Good context, Jeff. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. See y'all.
Bye.